Okay, yes, we're here to talk to you today, John, about the fun of writing.
The fun of writing.
The fun of writing.
Right.
This is a little special that's going to go on the YouTube channel. It's, writing is definitely an art that a lot of people just don't possess the ability and or the patience for. So, question number one.
Okay.
What got you started writing?
To be quite honest with you, not to create a Martha Stewart moment, but it was actually a bad relationship that we started writing way back right after high school, I believe it was, back in 1991 probably.
Okay.
Started doing some stuff, like I said, went through a really poor relationship, wrote a bunch of stuff out just kind of like randomly, and then a friend of mine was over and he was reading it and he was like, you can make this into poetry. And of course I made fun of him for writing poetry, and then figured out how to write poetry through him, and basically been writing ever since. What actually got me started writing in Reptiles, or Nonfiction, was the local herb society was looking for an editor to replace the one that they had.
Sweet.
Because he was leaving. And so I volunteered because I had done some poetry, like I said, had some stuff published, some short stories published, what have you. And figured, I'm into reptiles anyway, so, I'm sure I could, come up with some articles. So I took over the newsletter, began writing there. And within about 6 months to a year later, I saw the former editor in Reptiles magazine. And I was pissed. I was like, wait a minute. He's getting paid to write articles. Why am I not getting paid? This is not fair. So I did a real quick search on the internet, found a reptile magazine over in Europe, wrote an article on tegus, sent it over to them, and they decided to publish it. And been writing about reptiles and nonfiction ever since.
Now, what's the hardest part you find about doing it right now?
The hardest part,
as he enjoys his drink.
Currently, for me personally, is remembering all the information due to a recent illness I had. Barring that, coming up with correct information and how to use that information without coming across as a know-it-all, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of information out there on the internet, as you're completely aware because you're, all over the internet just like I am. There's so much wrong and incorrect information out there on the internet.
I couldn't agree more.
The one example I always like to use is there's still care sheets out there that tell you to use UVB for leopard geckos.
Yeah.
And as you and I both know, UVB is, mimics natural sunlight, which
is worthless for a nocturnal animal.
Completely.
Yeah.
And there are still care sheets, I swear to God, I saw one the other day, that are out there for leopard geckos to have UVB lights. So now you try to explain this to people that have been reading this incorrect information for many, many years.
Yeah.
And you try to tell them, and now you have to tell them in a way that, you don't come across, basically, for lack of a better term, you don't come across as an a-hole. You have to put it to them that they understand that, okay, look, I've been doing this for, over 10 years, and I've bred this animal before, and I've never used UVB lighting. So it's really, it's all in the presentation, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
It's how you present yourself to the audience. And you also have to make it interesting to them. It can't be just, oh, here's my article on leopard geckos. Well, so what?
Yeah.
There's 500 other guys that wrote articles too. What makes yours interesting?
Well, now, who is your general demographic, or do you aim for younger people that are maybe just coming into the hobby or haven't been into the hobby very long, or?
Me personally, I really don't aim for a specific demographic per se. I write for, I guess what you would term an everyman's writer.
Okay.
I really don't whether you're a breeder, whether you just got into the hobby, I want to educate everybody.
Yeah.
If I have something to share, then I try to share it with everybody.
Okay.
But mostly, if you're starting out in the industry and you want to write for magazines or publications like Reptiles or Reptilian Magazine in Europe or Scales and Tails in Australia or the digital magazine Herpetoculture House, a lot of those magazines are geared towards the beginning hobbyist, especially Reptiles magazine here in the States is geared really for the new person that just got their leopard gecko from the show or from the local pet shop, what have you.
Okay.
Scales and Tails Australia, it has a North American market, but a lot of their stuff is to do with Australian reptiles and whatnot, and their articles tend to run on the side of more technical than say an 8th grader could read, but still able to be picked up by the everyman's reader or what have you.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
Do you find it hard to when writing something like that that's more technical, hard to communicate with the younger? Do you get a lot of questions about what's that mean, what's this mean, or do you find that generally even the younger people understand it?
Well, that's one of the things that recently came up, with my article that just got published via the internet on the dollars and cents of captive bred reptiles, is in the original format I had mentioned the IUCN, which is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And I just put in there the acronym IUCN because to me that's normal speak. I know exactly what that is, and I figured, so should everybody else.
Yeah.
And, not to downplay anyone's knowledge or reading potential, but basically it's been shown that the American demographic, reads at about a 5th grade level at best.
Yeah.
So you really have to be aware of who you're writing for. When you do write for the magazines. And the best thing to do if you do decide to write for a magazine, pick up at least 3 to 4 issues and read through them. Like literally cover to cover, read through the magazine.
Yeah.
Because if you send in stuff that they're just, and it comes across, like for instance, you can't write too technical an article for Reptiles magazine. Otherwise they're just going to look at you like, what are you doing? This is way above the heads of our readers.
Yeah.
But you can write very technical stuff for people like Reptilia and Herpetoculture House, the electronic magazine, because they do enjoy, they have a readership that is, I guess the best way to put it is more educated than the average person. So you can write more technical articles for them. And you really have to be aware of your market. So picking up 3 to 4 issues, it's going to cost you, $10 to $15, and you don't have to pick up new issues. You can pick up back issues. You can go on their websites and order back issues from these people. Any publisher, should have available back issues.
You can come to my office and have them
find
all.
out, what kind of articles were published in the past. And that's the other thing too, is you always have to be, with Reptiles, if you look at, 12 months of Reptiles magazine, they never published 2 articles a year on leopard geckos.
Okay.
So you got to make sure that, okay, within the past year, what have they published on? If they published an article on blue-tongued skinks, they probably won't publish another one for another year or 2 years at best.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's really hard to come up with subject matter that they have not covered yet. And they're always changing too. Like Reptiles used to do a field herping column, which I had a couple articles for, and then when I sent them in within the next month, that portion of the magazine went away.
Okay.
So it's kind of frustrating at some points too. Is you send in these articles, you are told that we have this really great spot, and then it just goes away because it's part of corporate America type thing.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the articles they run. I just noticed this year they ran a pretty significant article on corn snakes. and then which is
Yeah.
considered probably one of the best beginner snakes out there.
Very definitely.
And then,
if I'm not mistaken, that one was written by Kathy Love, wasn't it?
It could have been. I don't know. She wrote most everything on corn snakes, so she
Yeah.
wrote the book literally. But then a few months later, I got an article by someone I actually watch on YouTube, and I wish I remembered her name now, but it was on the green tree monitors, which is not a beginner animal at all. In fact, it's my understanding a lot of them are still wild caught.
Yes.
And amazing animals. I'd love to have one, but you're talking. I think the last I saw them, they were ranging like $700 to $900 for these things. But
right,
real interesting swing in the way they did it with one of the easiest to care for animals within the reptile world, all the way up to one of the harder ones like that.
That's one of the things too that really got me going when I first started writing nonfiction articles for reptiles anywhere. That was one of the things that really wanted to make me get into publishing books was because one of the magazines out there, let's put it that way,
without being biased,
and I was reading about this really bitchin' snake that I was like, wow, this is cool, man. I could totally keep this animal in my house. It eats this. It needs this type of heating. It needs this type of care. And I was like, wow, this is bitchin'. This is just freaking awesome. I can totally take care of this.
Yeah.
I get to the end of the article, and the freaking thing needed the size of enclosure, the size of my living room.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, son of a, really? And I threw the magazine across the room. I'm like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Get me all excited about this animal. And then because I live in an apartment setting, I can't keep it. I was pissed.
Yeah,
bullshit.
I'm a big fan. Are you familiar with, for example, how Motor Trend reviews automobiles? And
I've heard of it, but I've never actually personally read it.
Well, at the very beginning of the article, they have a little scale there, and they have base price, what we paid, size of the engine, fuel economy, and all that stuff. And I'm a big fan of articles, just like you say about reptiles, that have that stuff right there. Like a basic care grid before you even get started, so you can see, okay, for advanced keepers, for beginner keepers, large snake, small lizard, whatever. Just something to give them an idea. I enjoy reading from cover to cover in between the ads when you can.
Yeah.
But it's nice to know, kind of have an idea, because just like you say, it might be something, we're always looking for the next thing that we want.
Right.
And to spend a few hours researching something or reading through some big article just to find out you need to go buy a new house to have it,
Yeah, exactly. And, that's one of the things that actually got Reptile Apartment started was, the fact that, okay, what can you keep in an apartment setting?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we started Reptile Apartment, because Reptile Apartment was actually supposed to be a book, but by the time we started it and started working on it and stuff like that, we figured out real quick that it would basically be the size of a, Oxford English Dictionary, collegiate edition, which, was like 4 to 5 inches thick, I think, and nobody's going to pick that up.
Yeah.
But we had so much information in there. So that's why we started the blog, and now even as we speak, we're redesigning it to make it even more user-friendly, so you can just go to the certain species that you're looking for, and then, if you're looking for, specific news articles or stuff like that, you and I have personally talked about, you can find those really easily, and stuff like that. So it's an ongoing process where we're still learning how best to get the information out there, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, that scale thing really intrigues me. And I'm going to have to go out and pick up a couple of Motor Trend magazines to look at that and see if maybe I can do something like that on the blog, so people can actually look, go to a corn snake and go, okay, this takes this type of enclosure, this size, this type of heating, it basically lays it out. So before you even read the article, you already know whether this is something that's within your budget or not.
Absolutely, yeah. I better run
so that may be something that I want to look at, even for our own personal blog. Who knows?
Yeah, I better run to the copyright office.
You better.
So
I'm looking tonight.
so what can we see in the future being published by John F. Taylor? You have any secrets or anything you can
Oh
divulge?
my gosh. Well, one of the big ones, or the biggest one, I should say, is a article. It's kind of a scientific article,
Uh huh.
scientific publication, I should say. I don't know if it's going to be an article or if it's going to be a book or what. Um, I'm doing something on what's called reptile cognition, and for lay people or for people like myself, it literally means how reptiles think.
Okay.
And because I saw a video posted by a well-known individual on the internet that basically said snakes are stupid. Really ticked me off.
Yeah.
Reptiles are not stupid.
No, they didn't survive 65 million years by being stupid.
Exactly.
They
You know, and I think Albert Einstein, and I know I'm going to misquote it, but if you look it up, you can find it. You know, he said something along the lines of everybody's a genius, but if you tell a fish, you know, if you judge a fish about how it climbs a tree, it's going to, you know, it's going to live its life thinking it's stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know, and it was something along that line. So anyway, long story short, I found a lady online through the social networks, as a matter of fact, by the name of Melissa Coakley in Florida, and she and I are actually writing a piece on reptile cognition from a cognitive ethology perspective, which basically means, again, in layman's terms,
Yeah, you're gonna have to dumb it down just a little bit. Just a little bit.
yeah, basically what that means is when we look at reptiles in nature, how do they solve problems?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they actually solving problems, or are they just operating on instinct and just, you know, go about the day, you know, dumber than the box of rocks?
Yeah. Well, you know, something very interesting that can come of this is, you know, how much do we really know about the care about some of these things?
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
mean, granted, we have.
That's why I went with the ethologist point of view,
Uh huh.
because there's a million and one studies that have been done in a lab.
Yeah.
Well, great, you're in a lab. That's not their natural environment.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I want to look at it. Okay, if they find a prey item, you know, outside, you know, rattlesnakes are a perfect example. Rulon Clark did a couple of studies on this. They'll pick a certain area that they know, or seem to know, I should say, because, you know, scientists are really big on not using the word intelligent because it's such a broad terminology.
Mhm.
So these rattlesnakes apparently or seemingly figure out that, okay, this rat weighs X amount, so this is going to give me X amount of energy to last for the next 6 months or 1 month or whatever. They're actually letting prey items pass by that are no benefit to them.
Hmm.
So obviously, to me, that means that the animal is cognizant of its dietary needs.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
So is that instinct, or is that actual cognition and, you know, reasoning happening within the brain of the animal?
So I mean, basically, your whole goal is that it's not just the instinct they're working off of, that they're figuring things out.
Right, they're reasoning out.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
reasoning out things, and, you know, they are solving problems, and, you know, and granted, they might not, you know, you might not be able to go up to a rattlesnake and go, okay, Clobber, you know, what's 1 + 1, and have the rattlesnake shake twice, but, you know, still, it's like,
Well, and again, as far as it goes with the captive care, I mean, how do we know that 92 degrees is the perfect basking area for a gecko or something? You know,
right.
Just because they survive in captivity like that doesn't mean they're comfortable.
Right.
And
yeah,
you know
exactly.
that something like that might just go a long way in, because like you say, most studies have been done just with captive experience or in a lab.
Right.
And yeah, really, really interesting stuff.
So that's the one. That's the long, drawn out one that's taking Melissa and I forever to get put together, because there's a lot of research papers out there that we have to read, and now I found a whole other aspect of the research that I have to read up on and research and talk to people about.
Uh-huh.
Other than that, we are going to next year And this is actually an exclusive announcement here. Next year, we are going to start finally getting into the ebook realm.
Awesome.
We've recruited some writers for various species. We are going to have some species-specific ebooks come out. Relatively cheap, as far as I'm concerned. We're talking maybe a couple of bucks, maybe $3 at most. That you'll be able to download to, we're trying to figure out the best way to publish them, and that's what's taken so long. Is every e-reader, if you will, like Blackberries, Kindles, Nooks, whatever, they all seem to have their proprietary aspects of how you have to format it.
Okay.
So that's the only thing that's holding us back. We're going to start out with Amazon and the Kindle. At first, it's going to be an exclusive thing on Kindle and Amazon. After that, we're going to start trying to reach out to Nook and the Barnes & Noble and all the other types of e-readers out there.
Okay.
But basically, it's going to be published in a PDF format. So basically, if you have a smartphone or a Mac or a PC, or no matter what you have, you'll be able to download the actual ebook itself and read it like a book.
Perfect, yeah.
And we're going to start off probably with the basics like corn snakes, leopard geckos, that kind of stuff, and then branch out into some of the more exotic, or I don't want to say exotic, but the more rare species that are kept in captivity, such as green tree pythons and stuff like that.
Okay.
And the thing that's going to be different for us is we're going to actually have these authors. I'm going to be co-authoring with these authors because I have experience with most of the species out there that we're going to be starting to write about. But I really want the authors who have, multiple decades of experience working with a specific species.
Okay.
And that's how we're going to work that. And then, other than that, like I said, the redesign of the blog is happening. That should be hopefully coming out. I know I've said this before multiple times. It'll be by the end of the year. By the end of 2011, the new blog redesign will be out.
Didn't you say 2010 last time?
No, I never said 2010.
Well, yeah, excellent. So where? Let's hear some websites. Where can we read more?
Oh, reading more. Let's see. We got reptileapartment.com, which is basically the general blog where you can have find care sheets, or they're not even really care sheets. They're care articles because they're more in depth than a care sheet. Mm-hmm. If you want to find in-depth care articles on how to take care of, flat rock scorpions, Arizona hairy scorpions, pretty much any bugs or reptiles that are kept, or arachnids, sorry. There's also millipedes on there too. Centipedes, I think, are on there. Once again, it's reptileapartment.com. The Reptile Living Room. .com, once again, is where you always find the Herp Report with Jason White, of course, as well as Interview with an Expert, which is our series of experts that we contact and interview either via telephone or live. Basically what that is our podcast or radio show about keeping reptiles and how to do it. Then, of course, the Herp Report with Jason White is all about the news that's going on that week. Generally speaking, also covering some different shows and stuff like that. We have Andrew Wyatt on there from US Arc. If you really want to know what US Arc is all about, there's actually an interview in there with Andrew Wyatt, and we actually tell him or ask him, okay, explain to listeners what is US Arc, and he literally goes from point A to point Z about what US Arc is, why it is, and what it covers.
Awesome.
And then last but never least is, of course, Herpeticulture House, which is at herphousemac.com, or you can search Google for Herpeticulture House, whichever you choose. herphousemac.com usually gets better results because people can easily remember it, which is the only digitally available reptiles magazine dedicated to the reptile industry. Basically, we contact experts in their field of reptile or arachnid or insect or bug keeping, ask them to write articles for us. And the biggest thing with Herp House Mag or Herpeticulture House Easing is there's no advertisements. There's no, go to one page and then have 50 pages of advertisements. because we didn't think, and we don't like reading through advertisements to get to our stories when we were subscribing to these magazines. So basically, I came up with the general idea of why shouldn't we have a digital magazine that you don't have to read through 100 pages of advertisement to get all of one story that's only 4 pages long.
Exactly. And I've read your magazine, and it's nice. It's like you say, without having those, I don't buy a magazine to find out where I should buy my crickets at.
And that's the thing. And we do have advertisements. I mean, don't get me wrong. We do have some advertisements, but what we do is basically, if you want to write an article for us, feel free. We accept all articles. We are out. Actually, our next issue, which will be out next week, this week, since it's Sunday, it's this week. Our next issue will actually feature our new article by Melissa Coakley, which is called Tales and Trails, which is exclusively dedicated to field herping.
Awesome.
She talks about how to go about field herping, what equipment to bring, her experiences in the field. Really, really funny stuff. There's some comical stuff in there. Just a really great author all the way around. But back to the advertising thing, what we do is we tell authors, anybody that wants to author an article for us, these submission guidelines are on the website at herpousemag.com. Click on submissions. You can get the submission guidelines right there. What we do for all of our authors is we ask them to send us a business card size advertisement. And what that does is it goes all the way in the back of the magazine. And that way, if somebody is so impressed with your article that they want to buy something from you or contact you in some form or fashion, they'll be able to do that through that business card size advertisement.
Excellent.
And that is the only advertisement that will ever be in herpousemag.com.
Perfect. And what about the social networks? Where can people go to pry into your life?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, on Twitter, you can find me at John_F_Taylor. On Facebook, I think you can just look up John F. Taylor. I think.
Or you can look at my page every Saturday night.
Oh, this is true. You can look at Jason White's page every Saturday night, where he will berate me with unusual comments and weirdness.
Martha Stewart type
I'm also
stuff.
on Google Plus. For all those that are on Google Plus now, I love that website. It's awesome stuff.
It's the future of social networking.
I think so, very definitely. Lots of good stuff going on Google Plus. I think I'm under just John Taylor on Google Plus, but basically, if you want to find me, you can shoot me an email directly to reptileapartment@gmail.com. Once again, it's reptileapartment@gmail.com. And I can, when I send you an email back responding to your question or comment, in my signature is all the places where I am at on the social networks.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you. And in some closing statements, some good words of advice to everybody watching, if they're still watching.
Words of advice to everybody watching. Somebody said something to me recently, well, actually a few months ago now, but, because I was always afraid to branch out into the scientific community and, start writing for the scientific community because I don't have a degree. I'm self-taught. Granted, I've been, self-taught for, well over 10 years. But they said something to me which really struck me. And real short, don't ever let anybody tell you you don't have anything to contribute to the community.
Absolutely.
And the other biggest thing as far as writing is concerned, and hopefully my editor Jeanette Nielsen will be watching this because she will be cheering loudly. Before you send out anything, before you send out anything at all to any magazine, whatever it should be, any publication at all, do yourself a favor, let it sit for 24 to at least 48 hours, read it again. Now, don't just read it. You have to read it out loud to yourself.
I agree.
Because when you read it out loud to yourself, you're reading it like your audience is probably going to read it, and you're going to catch all the weird technical details in there. that you wouldn't catch otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
So follow Jeanette Nielsen, her advice, read it out loud to yourself.
Absolutely.
Before you send it out to your editor, because otherwise you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble. Trust me.
Absolutely, and all hate mail can be sent to Jeanette Nielsen at... No, there's no hate mail here. Okay, John, well, thank you. Thank you. Keep it up.
Awesome, sir.
Keep it up.
Very cool. So does that mean I can shut up my video now?
Whatever you want.
All right.